Chapter 9, the extension of the senses, hearing. Having ears, ye hear not. Again, man is brought face to face with the fact that he is not properly hearing, that he is missing the voice and hearing only the noise and the sound of things coming together in the outer world. He can be so mistaken in the sense of hearing that if he were to close his eyes, he could not tell whether a horse was approaching on a paved street or a couple of coconut shells were being tapped on a board. If he cannot differentiate between things as simple as these, how can he possibly rely on the sense of sound as he knows it? The fact that we are constantly accused of having ears and eyes which we do not use also posits that something important is being said. I once watched a Chinaman in a Shanghai native theatre enjoy and apparently hear one of his classics when such a bedlam was going on in the house that it would seem utterly impossible to hear the person sitting next to you without intently listening. Walter cracks me up. And yet the Chinaman was relaxed, making no conscious effort to hear through the din of crying babies, squeaky music, peanut and sweetmeat vendors. He was at a terrific point of attention, however, and all his power was pointed in one direction. It was like drawing the sun's rays through a magnifying glass. A deaf woman once told me she could always hear anything evil said about her in her presence. She did not know that if she could hear evil, she could hear everything else by the same method, that is, attention. She was at the point of attention when it came to evil. In fact, she admitted that she knew she could always hear anything evil that was being said about her, and so she did. The still small voice must be heard from this point of attention to the presence and not to the noise on the outside. Otherwise you miss the word which is to be made flesh. There were many things I could not tell you because of your unbelief. Many things Jesus wanted to reveal, but the hearing was so heavy by accepting the noise of the world that it could not hear the still small voice of revelation. A woman came rushing in one day, frightened almost into insensibility. A fortune teller told me I am going to be killed in 4 days. She had heard, as many people have heard, the death sentence pronounced over them. Incurable, hopeless, helpless, and thousands of other things that can only be heard by the hearing of the ear. It is not possible to hear those things from the standpoint of spirit, for they are founded on the failing wisdom of man, which is foolishness in the eyes of God. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. If he asks of God within himself, he will have to hear with the hearing ear. He will have to hear past the noise and confusion of the outside world. The voice will be eternally saying, I will. But unless the hearing is at the point of attention, it will hear the clanging noises of human belief. It is recorded that the dead shall hear my voice and live. And this not only means the physically dead, but the mentally dead as well. Not that which goeth in, but that which cometh out, defileth or maketh a man. That which you hear determines what will come out. Go unto this people and say, hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and not perceive. For the heart of this people is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have they closed, lest they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and should be converted, and I should heal them. It is obvious from many scriptural references that there are two kinds of hearing. One that causes the heart to wax gross, heavy with misunderstanding, and the other which hears that which the ears, dulled with false learning and judging from appearances, cannot hear. To hear the still small voice of which so much is said, the hearing must be of the heart and not of the ear from the human standpoint. My sheep hear my voice has nothing to do with a shepherd calling on the hillside. It is the inner hearing, just as a wise dog is not misled or attracted by an imitation of his master's voice, no matter how perfect the imitation. There is something in the hearing that detects the voice of the shepherd, and it is just this thing which opens the doors to the spirit of the words of life, which are otherwise dead letter. The 88 notes on a piano do not represent the sum total of sound. It extends to a point of infinity on both ends. Yet, because the heavy human hearing does not detect it, he says it does not exist. The universe is filled with music, which remains inaudible to most of us because we are hearing with the human ear. The cause of so much failure in the field of truth has been that most of us have been trying to hear the still small voice through the human ear, and although it thunders down through the ages, the clamour of the human belief makes such a din with its unreality and false testimony that the still small voice is inaudible, or else it is interpreted through such limited, dull senses that it is impractical. Hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, showing how the ear can hear the word and yet not hear it. Hearing with the ear and not understanding is hearing through the limited human sense. It is so far removed from the God spake that it cannot understand the still small voice. When you go within and shut your door, you shall then know what the true sense of hearing is, for the Father who heareth in secret shall reward thee openly. What is the hearing that the Father doeth? The shouting of the name of God has proven futile in the time of trouble. Loud speaking does not in any way attract the ear of the divine. It only shows a gross lack of understanding of the omnipresence of God as here, there, and everywhere, and makes of him an enlarged auditory nerve at best. The Father hearing in secret, sensing, understanding, grasping that which is to be established on the earth, your earth, when you have gone within and shut the door. When you have shut the door of every human argument and every bit of human reasoning and laid off the sandals of human understanding and spoken to the Father with the same joyous abandon and freedom that you might speak to your human father, when you have done this, the Father who heareth in secret shall reward thee openly. It does not say perhaps or maybe. It is definite and it is provable. shall reward thee openly. No matter what you were, did, or thought prior to the moment you went within and shut the door and spoke to the Father secretly. Leave all and follow me means just that. You leave all evil, fear, lack, limitation, and human reasoning. Just as you leave all your ideas about success and possessions and everything else that you have listed on the side of assets. You leave all, everything, and by leaving all, you find all. It is glorious to contemplate that when the Father within says, leave all and follow me, He is asking that you leave the bondage to everything and follow the me. When I say bondage, I mean just that. If a thing is binding you, if you cannot leave the bondage in it, you are still bound to it, no matter whether you put it out of your immediate life or not. Many persons are controlled by the things that they do not possess and which they feel they have put from their lives. To have an unsated longing for something that you have given up, and to imagine that because you have thrust it from you, you are free from the bondage of that thing, is to mistake entirely the command, leave all and follow me. Then you will find that you have left nothing except the bondage of it. The love of money is the root of all evil. It is the love, bondage to it, of money, and not money, that is the root of evil. Money in itself is not more evil than food, clothing, or anything else, but the bondage to it, whether it be much or little, is evil and causes you to do all sorts of things, either to get or hold it. A miser holding to the symbol while he starves is at the same point of expression as a beggar who is ready to commit any sort of crime to possess it. All extremes are evil. Too much food will result in the same thing that too little will, and so on. Being bound to things and the love of them puts the limitation on them. Coming out into the presence with the newborn sense of hearing, the way lies perfectly before you. The guiding influence is a voice from behind thee which says, this is the way, walk thou in it. This is the way. There is that same note of definite direction, uncompromising instruction contained in it. For the government being upon his shoulder, the instruction that is to come through the sense of hearing must be obeyed absolutely, and the human opinion must be put aside in order that the way may continue in peace. If you salute any man you pass on the highway of life, you are going against the instructions. Salute no man you pass on the highway. It is not an invitation to become unfriendly and unlivable. The saluting you are warned against is the exchange of opinions and beliefs and the hearing of some material information which changes your going on. Many a person would have been able to accomplish the thing set before him if he had not saluted some man on the way to his expression and heard something that spoiled his opportunity. An actress accustomed to giving a more than brilliant performance was one night told that a famous critic was in the audience and had come with the express purpose of finding some flaw in her work. In the parlance of the street, she went to pieces, gave the worst performance of her career, and after the show, she was taken home in a state of hysteria. She was informed that it had all been a mistake and that the said critic had not been present that evening but the one before, and had found nothing but praise for her work. What caused her to give such a terrible performance? Anything? Well, you answer it, and then you will see why we are to salute no man as we pass along the way. And more so is this true in regard to the revelations of the Christ teaching. If you have not arrived at a point where you are past the state of arguing, you have not actually heard the word and will be busy comparing different systems to find out which one contains God. No system contains God, yet they may all be contained in Him. The coal of fire placed on your lips shall also be placed on your ears. Salute no man you pass on the highway of life. He may be more interested in the personality of Jesus than in the Jesus Christ. Where does he live? Is he married? Any children? Any money? These are the eternal questions of the man you are warned against. He is eternally going out to see a person and not a principle, and he carries all filthiness that has accrued from the human hearing and the human looking at a person instead of hearing a principle. I will hear what God will speak. What a glorious resolution, and how hopeless it is to hear through the human understanding with its laws and limitations. But then I will hear what God will speak. And if you are to do that, it means that your speaking will have to cease, and your human reasoning and understanding will have to give place to the new inspiration of the Almighty. You are sure to hear something that will delight you, for it will carry with it the possibility of establishing it on the earth. When you begin to make yourself as God, which is what Jesus did, and could not escape doing if he worked from the premise, in the beginning God, then you shall begin to feel your way with the new senses. Then shall you understand how the deaf shall hear. Then shall the deaf hear. At the instant of recognition of the divine capacity of hearing, the limitations of the human ear fall away, and man hears, and hears things that the human ear is incapable of ever knowing. Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard the things that are prepared. They are already prepared for you when you can hear with the hearing that so completely transcends the human limitations that it breaks through the gates of heaven and comes to the throne of the presence. The changing sense of hearing and sight can only be attributable to the human limitations, since it is impossible to conceive of God with impaired vision or hearing. And the changeless power is not subject to degrees of sound or distances. The reason hearing and sight change in the human senses because they are limited to the human organism and can be easily deceived. Shaking a sheet of steel on the stage produces an impression of thunder, and this on the sunniest June day. And so it goes. Having ears ye hear not. As long as your hearing is stopped down to the physical instrument of hearing, it is bound to be limited and faulty. Then shall the dead hear the voice of God and live. Gives us some sense of hearing and its power. The true hearing pierces every belief of the humankind, even death. And so Lazarus heard, not with the human ear, but with the spiritual hearing, and picked up his body and brought it forth. The establishing of himself again on earth took place because of this hearing. Then shall the dead hear the voice of God and live, shoots through the walls of human belief, and brings out the establishment of the thing on earth. When you begin to hear the God spake, you shall begin to experience also the establishing of the thing, or the "and it was done" state, which instantly follows the hearing of the God spake. You cannot hear the God spake with the limited human senses, and God cannot hear the name Lord, Lord, that is called to him, because it is merely a sound and has no power to establish itself. My sheep hear my voice, and this my of the Father must come from the within that is cleansed of human reasoning, opinions and beliefs. He that is of God hearest God. And when you hear God, you are hearing the directing and governing power of the universe. And surely then you are to experience the sure and certain joy which comes from the knowledge that all things work together for good. Not perhaps, but actually work together. The overturning power of the voice which speaks to the hearing ear keeps setting aside one limitation after another, one human belief after another, and causes the Lazarus to be established on the earth, though if Jesus had listened to either Martha or Mary of the human sense testimony, he would never have spoken the word and caused the agreement in Lazarus to take place. Everything was against it. Even Mary and Martha said, "If you had been here, our brother would not have died." And when Jesus refused the opinion that Lazarus was dead, they still insisted that he was wrong and began to give all sorts of evidence to substantiate their human finding, hoping that Jesus would accept it as real and then perform a miracle. But Jesus would have none of it. He would not hear it because he was hearing with the inner power. And when he heard the word of life eternal, he called it to Lazarus. And the agreement being made, he was established on the earth again. The invitation to hear is open to all. There is no monopoly of it. It is not given to those who have studied a certain system or followed a certain teacher or leader. It is given to any man who will throw off the cloak of human bondage sufficiently to be clad in the all-encircling presence of God in his fullness. The promise stands. If any man hear my words, that is all you have to do, to hear with the understanding of the inner hearing. Not nearly so difficult if you do not preface this hearing with the belief that unless you have made elaborate preparations, you cannot hear God. How about the child who is given the kingdom of heaven? Eventually, through the extension of the senses into the infinite reaches of God, through losing the limited personal sense of life and finding it in the universal, does man come to the place of understanding, the place of hearing the statement, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and sup with him and he with me." The first step in the becoming one with the Christ voice is to hear it. Many have tried to do this through the human sense of hearing and have opened the door, and nothing has entered. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame and am set down with my Father in his throne. The beauty and love of Jesus, even at the last moment, telling us of the human state that he also came through, and making himself one with us, showing that what was possible for him is possible for us, is the magnificent heritage that has to be accepted joyously. If you are to arrive at the stage which the human mind calls mastership, and come to that place where you are set down with my Father in his throne, it will have to be accomplished through the use of the extended senses as revealed to us through the teaching of Jesus. The only overcoming that actually takes place is the overcoming of the limitations of the human senses, which judge from appearances and give forth the imperfect results thereby, their findings being imperfect as well as their premises. Finally, beloved, hear this. He that hath ears, let him hear what the scriptures say unto the churches. The voice and echo are one, like prayer and answer. That is the end of the extension of the senses.